Nightmares Unleashed, 7 Sinister Rules for Surviving the Cursed Night Shift in a Haunted Mine. The air was thick when Jessica stepped into the Quartz Mountain Mine, dread clawing at her throat. This wasn't just any job, it was a descent into a nightmarish history. The shadows flickered under the dim lights, like restless spirits waiting to snatch her soul. Her heart raced, every creak of the rusted infrastructure echoed like a warning bell, and the bitter scent of decay clung to her like a shroud. What haunted her even more were the stories, the whispered tales of miners swallowed by darkness, of screams that pierced the stillness, and of echoes that called names into the void. "You can feel it, can't you? It's alive in here." A voice sliced through her thoughts, sent chills skittering across her skin. Only her own mind responded, and yet the walls seemed to shudder with those lost before her. As Jessica clocked in, she wished she could shake off the ominous heaviness. The mining machinery hummed dully, their work a mockery of normalcy. Shadows played tricks, and eyes felt like they were watching. It started soft, a whisper, like fingers sliding over the back of her neck. "Jessica, Jessica," her breath caught. Rationality slipped through her fingers like sand, pushing aside her rising fear. She focused on the equipment, but darkness loomed near. The dim, flickering light above her was a taunting reminder, turning her heart to ice. She tried to shake it off seriously. This was just a job. Just a night. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She glanced around. Out there, the townsfolk whispered, wary eyes darting. Conversations trailed off at her approach. Their silence was deafening, painted with fear she'd hoped to avoid. Then she remembered Maureen's warning, "If it calls your name, Jessica, don't answer." Her stomach twisted at the thought. Hours turned slow and twisted in tension. Back home, her kids tossed in restless sleep, their innocence threatened by the darkness of this mine. Chill seeped into her bones. Suddenly, an old mining helmet clattered to the floor in the break room. No wind. No reason. Just the stark reality that something knew she was here. A pounding heartbeat thrummed in her ears. The whispers intensified, intertwining with shadows. Who were they? What had happened to the miners? Desperation clawed at her. She wanted to scream, but her voice snagged in her throat as if the mine had stolen it. Driven by instinct, Jessica's feet moved before her mind caught up. Each step deeper felt like flirting with a seduction she couldn't afford. The walls closed in as she stumbled through corridors where fleeting figures danced at the edge of her vision. A hidden chamber stood before her, filled with rusted relics, tokens of lives lost. A chill enveloped her, stirring memories of her own father, the miner who never returned home. Heart pounding, she sensed the truth tightening around her, the shadows drawing near. She recalled Maureen's grim face, her trembling fingers telling a story long buried. The reality dawned with cruel clarity. This mine didn't just want vengeance, it craved families, their memories, their futures. Something worse than just whispers waited in the dark, something sinister lurking just beyond the veil. But it wasn't only her life at stake, it yearned for hers too. Would she unravel the horrors before falling prey to what demanded her voice? Or would the shadows claim another? Jessica felt the breath of the mine against her skin, a cold caress that made her want to recoil. Each heartbeat was a reminder not just of her frailty, but of the countless souls who had thudded away in this forsaken place, their stories dimming with time. The whispers swirled around her like a vengeful wind. "Jessica, Jessica," they seemed to draw closer, wrapping around her, pulling her deeper into the gloom. "Don't respond," she whispered to herself, the mantra nearly lost in the churning anxiety. Like moths to a flame, her feet betrayed her, propelling her into the very center of despair. She gripped a rusty pickaxe, its weight grounding her in resolve, yet even it felt like a talisman against an unseen force. Ahead, the shadows pulsed and shifted, shapes morphing into the semblance of miners long gone. Faces emerged only to dissolve into tears of despair. The air thickened, sending icy tendrils creeping along her spine. A deep growl rumbled from the bowels of the mine, reverberating through the walls and into her bones. Was it the earth? Or something older, an entity spawned from every fear, every lost hope buried beneath the granite? Sweat beaded on her forehead, and she fought the urge to flee. Fear gnawed at her grip, but she clung to the memory of her children. They were her anchor in this gathering storm. If she lost herself here, would they lose her too? Maureen. The name slipped through her lips, sounding like a prayer. If only her friend were here to restrain her from the inescapable pull. The fateful words echoed in the dark, swallowed by the mine's gluttonous maw, dissolving into the enveloping void. Stay strong, Jessica, she coaxed herself, desperate to muster her courage, but then, a new sound surfaced, sharp against the whispers a hammer pounding on metal. Jessica's heart plummeted in her chest. Where was it coming from? The rhythmic banging quickened, like some fevered heartbeat. Each impact sent tremors through the ground, resonating with her own fright. Instinctively, she turned to track the noise. The walls dripped with moisture, slick and heavy. She stepped forward cautiously. The whispers turned to laughter, a cruel cascade that echoed around her, taunting. Each footfall was a surrender, plummeting deeper into a rabbit hole of dread. The darkness seemed to swell with anticipation. Jessica, it's time. The voice transformed, now a soft siren song laced with malice. It called for her, sweetened by despair and desperation. She shook her head violently, clenching her fists. Although she wanted to break free, the pull was undeniable. A force cocooned her mind in a seductive haze, then she saw it, a dim light flickering deep within the mine's labyrinthine path. Had she imagined it? Or was it real? Drawing closer felt like wading into quicksand, yet her curiosity gnawed at her harder than fear. As she inched forward, the metallic jingle grew louder. Then she saw it, a rusted pick swinging in the air, an ethereal miner working tirelessly in the shadows. But wasn't he alone? Grinning faces, twisted with anguish, circled him, calling out names, echoing their painful pasts. A sense of icy dread settled in her stomach. These weren't just whispers anymore, these were lost souls pleading. Suddenly, the erratic ringing morphed into a chorus of agony and pleading. Jessica reeled back, realizing she was standing on the precipice of something unfathomable. They weren't calling just for her, each moan carved deep into her heart, siphoning her will to leave. With urgency prickling at her skin, she turned to run. Yet just as she took a step, a hand icy and clammy closed around her ankle. Stay, Jessica, the whispers begged, sinking into her very core. Would she escape the clutches of the past, or would she surrender to the call of those who had remained trapped in this nightmare? As darkness swallowed her vision and panic surged through her veins, she felt the pull of the mine tighten around her, an invitation to join the ranks of the lost. What lay before her? Would she answer the call, or would she fight against it? Jessica's pulse thundered in her ears as she fought against the grip that held her fast. Terrified, she clawed at her ankle, but the hand only tightened, as if urging her to stay. The whispers crescendoed around her, each voice dripping with anguish, laced with desperation. Help us, Jessica, they pleaded, mixing sorrow and longing into an inescapable symphony of despair. The very walls of the mine vibrated with their cries, and her heart raced wildly, pressing back against the fear that wrapped around her throat like a noose. With every ounce of strength, she jerked her leg, dislodging the phantom fingers that anchored her. The moment she broke free, she bolted forward, propelled by raw instinct. The shadows, however, twisted and closed in on her like hungry beasts. She could almost feel them breathe, all around her, merging, shifting, watching. Turning sharply to avoid falling into the void of darkness, she veered towards the flickering light, an uncertain beacon in the gloomy expanse. It pulsed rhythmically, almost inviting her closer, and the whispers morphed into a chilling harmony. Jessica, join us, she stumbled forward, her boots slipping on the slick rock beneath her. Barely thinking, she lunged towards the light, her breath rasping in her throat. Each movement felt laborious, as if the air itself conspired against her. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed through the mine. It felt like the very earth had groaned beneath her feet. She froze. The captivating light flickered ominously, casting a web of shadows that split and twisted, threatening to engulf her once more. "Run!" A new voice, a strong, forceful command cut through the cacophony, jolting her back to reality. "Maureen." Jessica thought, hope flickering dimly through her fear. If only she could just reach that light, but as she pushed on, a hint of regret seeped into her mind. What had she left behind? The faces surrounding the spectral miner haunted her thoughts. They had once lived, felt joy, had families, and now they were trapped, desperately reaching out, caught in their anguish. Jessica's hands clawed at her mind, throwing her off balance. She stumbled, hitting the ground hard, the pickaxe slipping through her fingers. The laughter returned, cruel and taunting. She could feel it like icy water pouring over her, squeezing her heart until it ached. "Join us," they whispered again, but this time something shifted. The shadows danced nearer, like leeches drawn to blood. And yet there was recognition in their faces. Was she even capable of leaving without them? Fear morphed into a spine-tingling realization. The miners weren't just lost souls, they were bound, tethered to the earth, woven into its tortured fabric. And now, as the mine bellowed around her, Jessica felt the burden of their sorrow heavy, unyielding. Taking deep breaths, she forced herself to stand. "No. I want to join you," she shouted, her voice breaking the ominous rhythm surrounding her like a wave. The air stilled for a heartbeat, shrinking beneath her defiance. But then, a wave of fury crashed over her, the voices rising in pitch. The light flickered violently, and from it emerged a shadow, a gnarled figure moving towards her. A miner, but twisted, eyes glistening with sorrow and rage. "You cannot escape," it bellowed, a deep, hollow sound that echoed through the cavern. With her heart racing, Jessica grabbed the pickaxe again, the weight familiar and grounding. "I'll fight!" she screamed, raising it high, feeling both fear and fury coursing through her veins, and as she prepared to stand her ground, she heard a deep, rumbling laugh roll from the shadows. "You can try, but the mine has a hunger and it always gets what it wants." The shadows thickened around her, pressing in, a tide of darkness threatening to consume her whole. What was left? Was there a way to break their chains, or would she find herself bound to their fate, forever echoing the cries of the lost? In that fraught moment, Jessica felt the ground quake beneath her, the mine itself awakening, roaring in unholy hunger. With fire in her eyes and dread in her heart, she braced for a confrontation, knowing that this was a battle for more than just her life. It was a desperate fight for freedom, a promise to her children, and those souls she could still save. Could she defy the wrath of the past, or would the mine claim her as one of its own? The shadows surged forward, threatening to envelop her completely. Jessica's heart raced like a drum in her chest, pounding against her ribcage with every fleeting second. She swung the pickaxe in a frantic arc, the metal glinting dully in the flickering light. Would it even do anything? She was uncertain, but the thought of surrender sent a shiver down her spine. "Leave me alone," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. The whispering voices swirled around her, growing louder, each plea filled with torment. "Help us, Jessica, join us," they echoed in her mind, frantic and sorrowful, the sound wrapping itself around her thoughts. The miner's twisted figure loomed closer, a vessel of pure torment. Its eyes glistened, reflecting her fear. "You must understand, you're one of us now," it rasped, as if relishing her struggle. The air around her felt heavy, oppressive, suffocating. "No!" she shouted, summoning the courage that threatened to slip away. She swung the pickaxe again, feeling the rush of air as it sliced through the space before her. "I will not belong to your darkness." But the shadows didn't retreat. They pressed in, thick and consuming. For every step she took backwards, they advanced with an insatiable hunger. The very walls of the mine seemed to pulse with life, vibrating with an energy that made her skin crawl. The terror was palpable, squeezing her heart in a tight fist, and then, in the sharpness of the moment, her eyes caught the flickering light above. It pulsed rhythmically, almost as if it were alive. Was it the promise of escape? Jessica's pulse quickened, hope flaring briefly in her chest. She darted toward it, focused solely on that glimmering beacon, but the gnarled figure of the miner surged forward, blocking her path. "You cannot go. We are bound together. You are part of our tragedy now." Its voice rang out, a bitter, chilling proclamation, echoing in the caverns like a death knell. The light flickered again, casting elongated shadows that danced ominously. With each pulse, Jessica felt herself pulled in two directions, the light calling her into the unknown, while the shadows wrapped around her ankles, entangling her in despair. "Help us," they whispered once more, but now with a twist of malice. "Join us." Panic surged through her, and in that moment, she understood the reality of the mine. It wasn't merely a tomb, it was a trap. She wasn't just fighting for her life. She was battling those who had succumbed to the same fate she now faced. Mustering every ounce of strength, she shouted, "I want to let you take me." She swung the pickaxe low, striking the ground. The contact reverberated upwards, sending a shockwave through the mine. Dust erupted, obscuring her surroundings momentarily. She seized the opportunity to run, her legs pumping furiously beneath her, towards the tempting light. The darkness fought back, clawing at her. Shadows lashed out, prickling her skin like icy needles. She felt them grasping at her, pinching her flesh, trying to drag her down. But she pressed on, the light becoming brighter, more tangible. She could almost feel its warmth piercing through the suffocating cold. With one final push, she lunged for the light, arms outstretched as she burst through the haze. She collided into the brightness, screams screeching sharply behind her as the shadows recoiled, repelled by the sudden influx of warmth. But just as she thought she had escaped, the ground started to tremble beneath her, and the light dimmed. A deep, rumbling voice, echoing through the hollow chaos, snarled, "The mine will never let you go." Jessica stumbled, fear clenching her stomach like a vice. What had she unleashed? The very mine seemed to twist against her, as if refusing to allow her freedom even now. Her heart raced, reality dawning on her. The escape had merely begun a new, terrifying chapter. Could she unravel the mine's dark legacy, or would it swallow her whole, as it had so many before? As the shadows crept ever closer, she realized one thing was certain: the true fight had just begun. Jessica gasped for air as the walls of the mine quaked, the sound reverberating like a drumbeat of doom within her ears. Her pulse raced as dusk settled into her core, a crawling dread pulling her further down into despair. The shimmering light flickered ominously above her, its warmth snatched by the encroaching shadows. In the swirling dark, the miner's voice sneered, visceral and cold. "You think you can escape? We are all you have now, Jessica." His figure melted in and out of the blackness, a spectre entwined with her fate. It was then that she spotted the shadows shifting in peculiar shapes, forming ghostly faces of the miners long gone. Each one opened its mouth to scream, but their voices melted into an anguished chorus. "Help us, join us." They crawled toward her, bloated with those sentiments, stretching their skeletal fingers, as if attempting to reclaim their lost souls through her. "No." The words slipped from her lips, steeped in defiance. She took off running again, her breath ragged, echoing in the narrow passages. With every thundering step, the shadows raced behind her, too close, too alive. They were a relentless tide, just waiting to drag her under. Suddenly, she spotted a small alcove to her right and launched herself into it, cowering behind the cold, unyielding rock. Heart pounding, she pressed her back against the stony wall, praying for a moment of respite. Silence draped over her like a heavy blanket, but the oppressive darkness suffocated her. It felt like hours, but she couldn't let herself breathe easy. The world outside pulsed with energy, and she could hear them, their whispers curling around her like smoke, suffocating her resolve. "The mine will reveal what you hide." She squeezed her eyes shut, focusing on anything but the icy dread chilling her bones. A sudden vision shattered her thoughts. A previous miner, stricken by madness. His blame had been cast upon the darkness. Was he warning her? Or was it a lie meant to ensnare her, just as it had ensnared him? In the thickness of her anxiety, a chilling thought gripped her: what if the whispers weren't meaningless? What if they were the remnants of lost souls trying to share their fates? Panic coursed through her veins, pushing her to the brink. If she didn't hurry, they would absorb her spirit into their collective lamentations, forever shrouded in darkness. With trembling hands, Jessica gripped the pickaxe, determined to fight back one last time. She burst from her hiding spot, swinging the weapon wildly, creating space between her and the menacing figures. But instead of retreating, they lunged forward, slashing at the idea of her freedom. She could feel the chill of their presence, and every step backward cost her a fragment of strength in that moment, desperation made her do the unthinkable. She raised the pickaxe high above her head, yelling, "I will break this curse." She swung downwards, the metal biting into the ground. A tremor ran through the cavern, and the shadows hesitated, momentarily disrupted in her heart, a new flicker of hope ignited. Just then, a piercing scream erupted from the mine, mingling with the echoes of her swing. It was a cacophony, a final gasp of lost souls. Could she really break their hold? With burning fury, she pressed forward, determination fueling her every move. But the mine warped, shifting like a living thing. The very ground she stood on trembled again, forcing her to stumble. Suddenly, everything went dark. The light was snuffed out as if someone switched off a giant cosmic switch. "What?" she whispered, fear crashing over her in waves. The suffocating quiet threatened to swallow her whole, and then, in that thick silence, she heard a soft, taunting laugh permeating the crushing darkness. "The mine is awakening, and you'll never escape its grasp." A cold realization washed over her. The fight had only just begun. What other horrors awaited her in this relentless blackness? Desperation clawed at her thoughts. There was no going back now. She had to break the cycle or perish with the lost souls. Soon, she would discover what the mine had in store for the brave or the foolhardy. Darkness wrapped around Jessica like a thick, smothering fog. She could barely see her own hands in front of her, and the air felt colder, heavier. Every sound seemed amplified, each whisper echoing a sinister melody that snaked through her mind. "Escape or join us," they chanted, luring her back into the abyss. She had to act quickly. Not just to survive but to reclaim herself before they consumed her entirely. Fumbling, she reached for the pickaxe, grasping the familiar handle that felt warm against her chill-stricken skin. The memories of her swings and the fight she had just given flashed through her mind. But this darkness felt different. It wasn't just the absence of light. It felt alive, a pulsing entity that was watching her struggle. As she steadied her breath, she sensed movement inches away. But it wasn't the shadows alone. They were shifting, merging with the very rock, vibrating with a rhythm that echoed her heartbeat. Her skin crawled, and she fought the urge to scream, to show weakness. They wanted her afraid. Jessica took a step deeper into the darkness, forcing herself to confront whatever lurked ahead. A low growl resonated from the void, earthy and guttural. "You believe you can change fate?" The miner's voice oozed from the shadows. "This mine holds you now. We will show you what is hidden beneath." Suddenly, shadows spun around her, swirling like a cyclone. Bone-chilling faces morphed within the contours, each one bearing witness to the torment that lurked in the mine. Jessica felt her heart in her throat, the weight of the past pressed down on her chest. She could feel the ghosts clawing at her sanity, desperate to drag her under the weight of their despair. Fate can be rewritten. She shouted defiantly, swinging the pickaxe, hoping to scatter the darkness. But the blow didn't connect as expected. Instead, the air shimmered, and she was thrust back, landing hard against the damp ground. Pain shot through her arm, but she gritted her teeth, refusing to succumb. She glared into the abyss, feeling that familiar dread creeping back. "I want to be your vessel." The shadows paused, and then came the laughter again, sharper this time, reverberating against the cavern walls. You think yourself special, don't you? Just another soul lost in our prison. Jessica's throat tightened. She remembered a miner's warning about traps in every corner of the mine. No. I will find a way. She yanked herself up, the pickaxe looking less like a weapon and more an extension of her very soul. The air shifted again, and she could see faint glimmers ahead, almost like stars, beauty veiled within the horror. Were they a pathway to freedom or another trick? Gathering her resolve, she forged ahead, picking her steps carefully. If it was a choice between despair or hope, she would choose to fight for the latter. The passage twisted, pulling her deeper, the walls closing in, threatening to suffocate. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a larger cavern. The shadows swirled faster, and now she could hear a chorus of pleading cries from the walls. Help us, join us. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of grief intermingled with urgency. Jessica stood still, a chill crawling down her spine. What do you want from me? She called out, her voice echoing unnervingly. Awaken the keeper, only he can set you free. An icy shiver coursed through her. Was there a guardian of this mine, a keeper of its dreadful secrets? Who, or what, could that be? Trust? Betrayal? The thought of another being in the mine sent shudders through her. Before she could ponder further, the laughter returned, echoing menacingly. The shadows surged forward, menacing and relentless. She couldn't think. She had to decide whether to flee or to confront whatever awaited her in the blackness. With flames of adrenaline ignited, she steeled herself, ready to plunge deeper into the darkness. Yet, the real question haunted her: what if the keeper was just another trap? Jessica clenched her teeth, ready to face the unknown. The mine was alive, and now she had to decide, would she awaken the guardian? Or had she already sealed her own fate? As the shadows closed in, she realized one thing: terror had become her only companion, and in this suffocating darkness, she was far from safe. The shadows loomed closer, a churning mass of despair and malevolence, clawing at her with invisible talons. Jessica's breath quickened, short and ragged, as she realized that the whispers had turned into shrieks. The once enticing promise of the keeper now felt like the last vestige of hope slipping away beneath the weight of fear. Awaken the keeper, the phrase echoed in her mind like a relentless drumbeat, pushing her deeper into the pit of panic. She tightened her grip on the pickaxe, her fingers cramping around the handle. It felt solid against her trembling hand, a lifeline in a sea of darkness. With every step, she waded through the cacophony of voices swirling around her, each one clawing for recognition. "You're just like us, lost alone," they taunted. Jessica squeezed her eyes shut and shook her head, as if that would dispel them. "No. I'm not lost." She pressed onward, the cavern expanding into a grotesque theater of despair, shadows shifting like dark sculptures. Twisted figures danced at the edge of her vision, remnants of the miners who had vanished. Their eyes were voids that absorbed any glimmer of light. A cry caught in her throat as she spotted one figure, a miner, face gaunt, skin pallid, clutching his head as if suffering from an unseen torment. "Help me," he whispered, voice threading through her resolve like a knife. Why was she even thinking of helping him? What if it was a trap? But the desperation in his eyes sent a shiver down her spine. Who is the keeper?" She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "The darkness," he replied, his gaze darting to the shadows. "He waits for you, you must awaken him." Her heart raced. Now she was faced with what felt like a choice between her instincts and a twisted calling. Was the keeper a monster or salvation? Both options reeked of danger, but she had to know. "How do I find him?" she asked, tentative. The answer felt like an invitation to plunge into a chasm of dread. "Follow the light," the miner's voice trailed off as shadows snatched him back, a scream torn from his mouth. "No!" Jessica cried, instinctively stepping forward. The sound of cracking bones underfoot made her stumble back, as she realized they were remnants of those trapped, their screams now fused to the stone of the mine. Weighed down by the living echoes of despair, her spirit wavered. But the glimmers she had seen earlier pulsed with a different energy, flickering like fireflies caught in the abyss. Could they lead her to the keeper? Clenching her jaw, Jessica took hesitant steps toward the lights, the jagged edges of the darkness gnashing behind her. Each flicker radiated warmth, a stark contrast to the cold that surrounded her. As she approached, the lights coalesced into a singular point, illuminating a massive door carved out of black stone, adorned with strange symbols that pulsed softly, almost in time with her heart. Symbols of warning. Or markers of freedom. Awaken, awaken, the whispers chanted anew, reverberating against the walls, building into a frenzy. Please tell me. Jessica called into the void surrounding her. Every instinct screamed to flee, but she had come too far to turn back now. And then she heard it, the creaking of the door, a slow, ominous sound echoing through the mine. The whispers faded into an expectant hush. What lay beyond? She stepped closer, wary and trembling, heart pounding louder than the silence that filled the air. Before she could reach for the door, a cold wind gusted, knocking her back onto the hard ground. The shadows laughed, delighted by her fear. A choice awaits you, child, a low voice sang, deep and resonant, slicing through the air. Will you supplant the keeper? Become the very darkness you fear? Jessica looked at the door, fear gnawing at her resolve like a ravenous beast. I want tea, she whispered. Yet doubt seeped in, filling her with a sense of dread. What if there was no way out? Awaken and be reborn or be consumed, the voice taunted, growing louder now, filling every crevice of the mine. As she braced herself, ready to confront whatever lay beyond that door, a new realization hit her, a dark truth lurking just beneath the surface. What if she wasn't meant to save herself at all? Shivers raced down her spine as the door creaked wider. Jessica took a breath, ready to face what might come, only to hear the echo of a child's laughter piercing through the void, chilling her to her core. Who is there? She shouted, voice trembling with primal terror. The answer came as the door slowly swung open and the darkness beckoned. The door yawned open like the maw of a beast, revealing a dense blackness that pulsed and writhed. A suffocating chill swept across the chamber, wrapping around Jessica like a spectre's embrace. She felt as if she was being pulled into an abyss, and her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The laughter echoed again, sweet yet twisted, a child's voice, innocent but inflected with malice. Come play with us. It chimed, a melody dripping with dread. Jessica's skin prickled. Who was out there? What had she stumbled into? Summoning what courage she had left, she stepped across the threshold. The instant her foot hit the ground beyond the door, the world shifted. The walls around her dissolved, replaced by a thicket of shadows dancing to the horrors concealed within. The symbols on the door now glimmered faintly, illuminating two paths ahead, both obscured by thick fog. Choose, the voice whispered, a chorus of many now tightening around her, imbued with a sinister glee. Will you follow the child or the keeper? The child's laughter rang out again, reverberating through the cold air. It cut through the fog like a blade, pulling at something deep within her. The other path was quieter, dark and foreboding, yet there was an underlying pulse, a beckoning she couldn't explain. Could it be the keeper? A figure of salvation or doom? Jessica hesitated. Why should I trust you? She called out toward the laughter. What do you want from me? Everything. The myriad voices shrieked in unison, echoing against the stone. To play to stay. With a shudder, Jessica whirled to face the path to the keeper. The darkness there radiated a heavy allure. The souls trapped in this mine, could they be saved? The thought ignited a flicker of determination within her. She took a deep breath, edging toward the more daunting path. As she moved, the shadows twisted and tightened around her. No. Don't leave us. Cried the phantom children, their voices entangling with shrieks and pleas from the miners. We need you. Need me for what? Jessica shouted back, teeth clenched. The shadows shifted again, a wave of cold air brushing past her that felt more like hands, grasping desperately. Join us. We can escape together. The laughter resumed, a manic crescendo, drowning out her thoughts. But inside, she felt a comforting warmth emanating from the Keeper's path. It raised the hairs on her neck and filled her with a resolve she couldn't ignore. Enough! She screamed, spinning on her heels and sprinting toward the path of the Keeper. The shadows roared with fury, shrieks of despair climbing in volume as they lunged at her. Jessica's heart raced, pain ripping through her muscles, but she refused to look back. Breathless, she lunged forward, dimly aware of the lost souls clawing for her. The warm glow intensified, leading her deeper into the dark, wrapping her in an almost protective aura. Would it protect her from what awaited? Or would she simply be caught in a web of more nightmares? The shadows yelled and howled, creating a cacophony of fear stretching on forever. Then, she stumbled into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in the darkness above. The light pulsed all around her, swirling into shapes, faces, hands, silhouettes weeping and wailing. In the center of the chamber stood the Keeper, an imposing figure outlined in shadow, their features obscured yet undeniably powerful. A chill coursed through her, blending fear with curiosity. "Welcome, Wanderer," the Keeper's voice reverberated like thunder. "You bring with you a choice: the glimmer of safety or the path to madness." Jessica's breath caught. "What do you want from me?" she cried, this time without terror. She stood tall, gripping the pickaxe like a shield. "Awakening is a gift but an irreversible one," the Keeper warned. "Will you join the shadows, or will you awaken me fully? The choice lies in your heart." Her heart raced yet again, this time not from fear but from exhilaration. Was this really her choice? To awaken something that had lain dormant for so long? Jessica felt the weight of countless eyes piercing her, demanding her decision, but as she prepared to respond, the air grew heavier, shadows thickening. Just outside her peripheral vision, something stirred, a flicker in the darkness, a final echo of the child's laughter, a promise or a threat. What awaited behind this choice? Would her heart lead her to salvation or deeper into despair? A tingling dread settled in her bones, the looming answer folding itself into the chasm of uncertainty. Jessica could only wonder, what did the Keeper truly desire? And what lay beyond awakening? The tension in the chamber crackled like static in the air. Jessica's grip on the pickaxe tightened, knuckles turning white against the dark metal. The Keeper's shadow loomed over her, an entity that now felt less like a guardian and more like a predator, poised to pounce as she hesitated. "Choose wisely," the Keeper intoned, voice low and sinister, singing with an allure that echoed through her bones. "Every choice carries weight, dear Wanderer." Jessica's mind raced. What if she chose wrong? The chill of the atmosphere seeped into her bones, every breath feeling like a struggle. The shadowy figures surrounding her whispered promises, horrible promises full of regret and despair. She felt their anxiety amplifying around her, a frenzy of hope mingled with fear. "You think you can save them?" The Keeper took a step forward, and the shadows swayed, whispers rising to a hissing symphony. So naive, Jessica's heart hammered, each beat a reminder of the souls trapped in this accursed mine. "I just want to help," she shouted, the words escaping her lips with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "I can't let you keep them." A wave of dark laughter erupted. The Keeper's shadows writhed in delight, a curtain of booing and mockery that made her skin crawl. "Help!" The Keeper leaned closer, their voice becoming a sibilant whisper. "You do not understand. Help comes at a cost." The laughter from the darkened corners of the chamber filled her ears. Was the child's laughter back? A piercing giggle tore through the air, sending ice through her veins. The shadows surged, and the very air around her thickened, suffocating her resolve. "Choose!" The disembodied voices shouted again, now multiple, echoing like a chorus of the damned. "Join us, Jessica. Leave the Keeper behind." Panic clenched at her throat. She could feel the weight of their pleading, of souls longing for release. But at what price? The Keeper reached out, a hand that extended into tangled shadows. Was it a gesture of salvation or a trap? The light pulsed brighter around her, almost blinding, hardening her resolve. "I will awaken you," she yelled, heart surging. The keeper paused, the shadows wavering at her declaration. She felt the shadows recoil, uncertainty prickling around her. It's time they were freed. The keeper's laughter fell away, replaced by dense silence. You know not what you awaken, the keeper warned, voice barely audible. An awakening can bring grand change. Their eyes glinted like shards of glass, and Jessica could sense a dread crawling up her spine. I'll take the risk, she said, a forced calm wrapping around her words. A growl emerged, deep and rolling, resonating with the shadows, who recoiled in distaste. Beware the cost, for it will be steep, the keeper hissed, a promise threaded with malice. A pulse of doubt crept into her heart. Had she chosen the darkness in its purest form? Just as the thought settled, the chamber exploded with a shrill cacophony, ghosts swirling violently. An echoing wail echoed through, shaking the very ground beneath her. The keeper's form twisted violently, shadows morphing as forgettables screamed for her, each face a mask of torment and desperate hope. Save us! You must save us! They begged, their voices drowning in the storm of voices. Join us! No! Jessica cried out, wincing against the onslaught of sound. I want to let your torment chain me. Free them! The atmosphere blazed with intensity, energy colliding in a tumultuous eruption. As shadows coiled in fury, the keeper's form darkened, blending into the very fabric of the night. What power lay within the shadows? Jessica squared her shoulders, heart racing, the shadows swirling like a tempest as their claws reached for her. She had said the words. Now she had to face the consequences. The air charged with electricity, the keeper erupted into a wild vortex, and within it, whispers promised both madness and salvation. At that moment, darkness cloaked her vision, and she felt herself being pulled into a vast eternity of nothingness. Your choice has been made. Now awaken the nightmares. What did that mean? Could she truly face what rose before her? The shadows swirled around her, and she fought against their grip, fear and determination colliding within. What awaited her in the chasm of the awakened? Would she find herself or lose everything she held dear? The darkness enveloped Jessica, a suffocating void pulling at her very soul. The shadows hissed and whispered, gnashing their unseen teeth, seizing her willpower. But she didn't succumb. Not now. Awaken the nightmares. She screamed into the abyss. I choose to fight. The shadows cackled as Jessica felt the ground tremble beneath her. Blinding light erupted from her heart, radiant and overwhelming, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Panic surged, but it morphed into something different: strength. I refuse to bow to you, she proclaimed, planting her feet firmly, the pickaxe clenched tightly in her hands. Foolish girl. The keeper's voice bellowed, echoing through the chamber. You dare challenge what has enslaved these souls? Yes. The word burst from her like a cannon shot. Together, we can break free. You don't own us. The light pulsed again, expanding in waves, and the cavern erupted in chaos. Souls trapped in shadows began to materialize, their forms swirling around her, eyes wide with desperate hope. Fulfill the promise. They cried, voices rising in a crescendo. She thrust the pickaxe downward, hitting the ground with palpable force. You are free from your chains, she shouted as the ground trembled violently in response. The very walls of the mine shook, releasing gusts of cold air that filled her lungs, replacing dread with fiery determination. With every strike, she felt the darkness recoil, and the echoes of the loss stirred in her core, igniting a shared purpose. Suddenly, all at once, the shadows surged forward, attempting to extinguish the light, screeching in fury. Jessica stumbled backward, caught off guard. No! She screamed, swinging her pickaxe wildly, desperate to defend her fragile flame. You cannot hold me. And just as she feared the encroaching shadows would devour her spirit, a brilliant spark erupted from her chest, a beacon of her resolve. I am more. She roared. In that moment, she understood, the past was a haunting melody meant to guide her, not bind her. A blinding explosion of light erupted from her, illuminating the chamber with the brilliance of 1,000 suns. The light seared through the shadows, incinerating each malevolent face that dared approach her. Shrieks of anger and pain filled the air, raw and feral, but the miners' faces turned from despair to awe as their forms broke free, illuminated by Jessica's fire. "Be free!" Jessica screamed, raising her arms high, channeling every ounce of strength and love she had for her children, for those she had lost, and for the miners still longing for peace. The Keeper roared, its shadowy form twisting in anger, but it was powerless against her sudden surge of energy. "You cannot," it began, but the light engulfed its presence, scattering it like dust in the wind. "You will pay!" It shrieked before vanishing into the ether, leaving behind only silence. As the light faded, the chamber grew quiet. Jessica looked around, panting. The air felt lighter. The whispers of anguish transformed into laughter, pure and ringing. Thank you," the multitude of souls echoed, swirling around her like gentle feathers in the wind. They were free, unhindered by the horrors of the past. Jessica felt tears streaming down her cheeks, a mixture of relief and grief. "You all deserve this," she choked out, overwhelmed by the collective sigh of release reverberating through the cavern. With the shadows dissipated, sight returned, revealing an exit leading back to the fresh air above. She turned away from the chamber, taking a moment to absorb one last glance at the freedom she had fought for. A promise fulfilled, a cycle broken. Willing her body to move, she paused, hearing soft whispers still lingering. "You will be our light, our spirit. Continue to remember us." "I will," she pledged, stepping from darkness into the dawn, legacy in hand, ready to embrace her children and carry forth their stories. The sun pierced through the mine's entrance, light flooding her senses with warmth. Jessica breathed deeply, allowing the fresh air to fill her lungs and her heart again pulse with life. "Maureen!" she called, the hope of reunion reigniting her spirit. "I'm coming." As she stepped outside, she promised to carry the miner's legacy with her, shadows fading but never forgotten, a truth reborn in the light, and a reminder that she had conquered the darkness without losing herself. Now, as you stand witness to Jessica's victory over despair, it's time to take a stand yourself. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive adventures. Smash that like button now to power up the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to enjoy this thrilling ride of darkness and light. This is the moment to show your support. Join the family today.